Hi everybody, how you doing? So what have you thought about the interview so far? Good? Great. So I'm going to do the whole like and subscribe thing now before my next interview. So if you're enjoying, if you're really excited to listen to lots of different people, if you've loved certain interviews, and if you think you know somebody who will also like these interviews, go down, click like and subscribe to stay in touch with all of the fab people that I've got coming up. And then share. Easy. Brilliant. So on to the introduction of my next guest. This lovely lady has done so many different jobs. From singing teacher to owning her own company, working with touring companies. She's done it all. Please take a listen to my interview with Angharad Sanders.
Okay, we're back.
Amazing. Can you still see and hear me okay?
Yes, perfect, yeah.
Epic. So my first question for you is, what is your fondest or earliest memory of live music or theatre?
Oh, that's a really intense question. Gosh, I don't know. Theatre, what? I mean, I know that the show that I first watched that stuck with me was Les Mis. I think I was 8 or 9 when my dad took me to London, and he always says that I was like just leaning forward with my mouth open the whole time. But I do have such fond memories of Carmarthen Youth Opera when I was a kid, and I did that every year. And yeah, I remember my first line on stage ever, and it was, "How do you spell hippopotamus?" My whole life, the whole show, that was it. In Hans Christian Andersen. I think I must have been maybe 7 or 8 again, yeah, really young. So yeah, I think those would probably be it, I think.
So you've been doing it for like forever?
Yeah, but interesting enough, more like the youth theatre stuff was always just like a hobby I never took seriously. And then I never really sang much. I sang at school, but I never had lessons. It was just because I had could make noise that I ended up singing. So it was all music, and I did a classical music degree. It was all music, and then just sort of fell into singing and musical theatre along the way, I guess, which is funny because now that's all I do really. So yeah. It's always something I loved, but like I say, it was just more of a hobby, and the music was more the serious side of things, I guess. Yeah. Weird.
So you say you did a classical music degree. Where did that lead you from there?
So born up at Carmarthen. I went to Huddersfield to do classical straight B Maison, so Bachelor of Music. And then I actually found out my going into my 3rd year, I've got a bit of a weakness in my wrists and my hands, a bit of arthritis. And I played the clarinet and saxophone, and that was it was making it worse. And so I remember saying, I have no idea what to do now. Like, that was what I'd always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing an MA in jazz music at Leeds College of Music. Yeah, I randomly ended up doing a jazz MA. And while I was there, I remember the conversation so well. I was in the staff room. I'd just gone back. I'd finished my MA and then come back to teach on the pop and jazz degrees. And somebody came in the staff room and said, "We need someone to do musical theatre." And it was literally, "You like that stuff, you go do that." And then literally it's just all snowballed from there that I ended up. It was never a plan to teach, and it was never a plan to be an MD, and it was never a plan to sing. And then it's all that's happened, which is amazing. It all just kind of out of nowhere came from, because classical music was going to be what I was going to do, orchestral music. That's what I wanted to do. And then it just all sort of created
took off.
Really.
And that's the thing, I think, like, if you're open to it, or maybe if you don't see something coming and then it just hits you in the face and you're like, well, I either do it or I don't, and you just take the leap and go, I'm just going to do it and see what happens, those, not always, but are usually the best things to come out of it.
Yeah, I was so lucky. I just happened to be in the staff room having that chat, and it was my old singing teacher who was like, "You like that kind of stuff, don't you? You do that." And then within, I think it was something like 6 to 8 months, a really close time period anyway, Billy Elliot the Musical was re-auditioning for the cast change. They had one set of boys and they were re-auditioning, and they needed someone in the north-ish area of the country to work for the Billy School. And then I just happened to be the musical theatre, so it was literally just all thrown in. And again, I didn't have time to think. It was just, someone needs to do this, you go, sure. And then gradually and I remember thinking then I thought I'd like to work in London. I was living in Leeds, and I thought I'd like to maybe try London, and my plan was only maybe do 1 or 2 days a week in London, and then snowballed. I ended up down there full time, and brilliant, all brilliant. But like you say, if I stopped and thought, I might have said no, and I'm really glad I just followed my gut and thought, okay, I can do that, that's fine. Just go with it. And I'm really pleased that this all happened. I wouldn't change any of it now for the world. Everything that I've done, I would not change for the world. But had I been, when I was 18, looking at what I was going to do in life, I would never have thought I'd end up where I am, ever.
Yeah. So off the back of that then, what was your goal or dream to achieve?
I just wanted to be, and I guess I've done away with that. I always wanted to be a musician. I was interested in pit playing, musical theatre pits, more in the orchestral, but I was really interested in like film scores and stuff. Like I was really interested in more playing that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to be, I remember somebody asking me, I don't know why, weirdly stuck in my head, but I always just wanted to be respected for what I did. That was my goal, just to be respected in my industry for whatever it was that I did. Which I guess we've got there. Just not playing cartoons. A bit more serious maybe, but yeah.
Oh, cool. So talk us through your career then. Tell us, what have you been doing?
Oh my, I always find that really it's so hard, isn't it? Because I guess like every creative in this industry, it's like a massive patchwork quilt of random things that make up who you are, who I am now, I guess. So I did my MA at Leeds, and then ended up moving down to London, worked at Italia Conti, a lot of drama schools, ended up at Sylvia Young's, kind of jump from one to the other. So I was with them, Sylvia's and Italia Conti, probably about 7 or 8 years, teaching the students and the juniors, and the juniors were just the year 7 to 11 was what they called the juniors. And ended up teaching a lot, ended up just doing a lot of MDing, sort of gradually built it up, I guess, and jobs came in and were offered, and if I enjoyed them, and my gut said yes, and I took them. Did a lot of fringe productions, so I did the Steel Pier at the Union Theatre, that was the European premiere. I did Avenue Q. Ended up working in America, again, like a really random connection, that I genuinely went to work at Italia Conti one day, and there were some auditions happening. So one of the women who ran the filming said to me, would you mind covering my class? We've got a visiting director. Could you cover that while I do the auditions? Again, fine, whatever, I'll go in and do it. Just so happened that this visiting director worked at Stage Door Manor, which is one of the biggest training camps in the US. And we just got on really well, and actually bonded over, I had on my phone, Ethel Merman Goes Disco, the album, of course. And so I was just chatting to him about Ethel Merman Goes Disco, and then we made friends, and he got me my job, I guess, got my foot in the door to work in America, which was amazing. And then since then, things have just come in, and I think I've always just followed my gut and gone, right, okay, if this feels right, and I like the people I'm working with, and it's creative, then I never really wanted to do West End, in that I didn't want to, it doesn't necessarily inspire me as much as being very playful and creative with the show, as so a lot of West End is show in a box, isn't it? And very much like every production of Les Mis is Les Mis, brilliant, don't get me wrong, but I kind of like being a little more creative and playful, so I've ended up more with sort of fringe and new musicals. Just before I moved back to Wales, then that was my last big one. I did the Madagascar UK tour, and that was sort of brilliant because we got to really play with the basic script and the basic music, and kind of create a new thing out of the show that existed already, which was really brilliant. And then ended up back in Wales because of my little boy. Really, we wanted to come home to Wales, and to have him, who was growing up incredibly fast. But I'm not ruling out other kind of, I've a lot of work offers, until COVID-19, for all sorts. So I still will travel, and I'll still work a lot, but it's just nice to be back in Wales now with him.
Yeah, amazing. My gosh, like so much stuff.
Yeah.
But that's great because, like you say, you did lots of things that to start with that you planned, and then something happened that wasn't planned. It took a different direction, and then following your gut, going, okay, we'll see where this takes me. So not really living for the now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I am a planner in that, like, I know where I want to be kind of for me, as opposed to career-wise, if that makes sense. Like, I've always known I would like to be sort of respected in my industry. I've always wanted that, and whatever I've gone into, I've thought, how can I continue to train to be better at this, whatever that is. So like did a lot of kind of singing teaching qualifications, did a lot of sitting in orchestra pits with other MDs to kind of do ride-alongs and talk to them, and give them networking opportunity. Like even during COVID-19, there's a lot of places doing sort of free and paid for workshops and seminars for musical directors and all that. So I've always kind of wanted to keep building on what I've got, if that makes sense. Like keep building on who I am. And then sometimes you'll come to a wall, won't you, and you'll go, I've done enough of that. That's not me anymore. Yeah. And I think that's everyone's career. I don't think you ever come to a point where you're done. There's always, I'd like to think that anyway. I'd like to think that I'll retire. There'll always be something that I'm like, oh, now I'm going to do this. Yeah.
Well, like you say, because it's such a vast industry, just looking at so many different parts of it, you can say, okay, I'm done doing this, but actually that will lead nicely onto this, or I might try this, and it's just one of those industries that you just hopefully never get fed up of.
Yeah, and I think I'm very much a believer in like how you treat other people will come back to you, in that like I'm so lucky that through like random little teaching jobs I've met people who then had later on done really well in their sort of field of the industry, and then brought me in for different things, as in like I met one of the companies I vocal coach for, which I adore. It's one of my favorite jobs that I do every year, and I met their musical supervisor whilst working in America, so nothing to do with them and nothing to do with singing. We were working together as musical directors. But then he needed someone who knew the voice, and it's then how you kind of make those connections, isn't it? So I think it's just about being open. I think that's how I would think of it. My life would be so different. It's very strange. Like to think about that sliding doors moments. I've had lots of them.
Absolutely, yeah.
It could have gone
definitely
completely a different way, But yeah, I'm very grateful for everything that I've done, and for all those people that have like come back, if that makes sense. Like people that I've met again in life. It's cyclical, isn't it? That they come back and then you go, oh. And even now, I feel very old, but now a lot of my like original students are doing so well, and they now pay back in kind, they'll do stuff for me to help me out. And some of them, like one of them had auditions, he's directing now and needed a pianist for an audition, so drop me a line, and like that sort of stuff, it does come back, even if it's not right now, it'll come back in the future to kind of help, I suppose.
yeah, because you kind of like build a new family, don't you, within the industry. It becomes, if you're not with your family because you're on a job, or your work sometimes takes over your life, and I think you want to be surrounded by people who you feel comfortable with, but they feel comfortable with you, and you want to be able to trust one another and have a good time with each other. And when it comes back around and you go, oh my god, I remember you, or that's really nice, because that you enjoyed your time together and that you made impressions on each other. Yeah,
I found that happens a lot. And like, I mean, I was so lucky. It was my birthday a few weeks ago in lockdown, and my best mate and my partner and my brothers got together and made me a beautiful video, and it was insane how many people. I said, actually, if we hadn't been locked down, I wouldn't have seen those people for my birthday, but all of a sudden these people from like years ago, and I cried, but people now, and like you say, like all those people, they do come back, and I think that's a lovely thing. And I think you're right, like we do I almost feel like every job that I do has its own little nuclear family, and those people then make their own new family, and then you just expand your family, don't you? And like through other people. And if people had said to me when I was younger how the industry is this big, I probably wouldn't have believed them, but oh my lord, it is tiny. Everyone knows everyone, and you can't get away with any kind of idiocy, because someone will know and someone will tell someone else, and it's snowball, isn't it? So I think that's a really important part of being in the industry. I think just that general attitude of putting yourself out there and being just genuine, I guess is the right word, isn't it? Just being genuine. But that said, I have followed my gut, and there's been jobs that I thought, I know that's not for me, and I've politely said no, because I think I know that's not me. Or the team, we've met and we've not quite connected. So I thought, well, I don't know if I'll get the best out of this. And there's been the odd one that I've regretted saying no to, but at the same time, it was right for me at the time, and you just have to go with that, don't you? And think, this is right for me right now, so I'll go with it.
Definitely. So talk us through what are some of the challenges of being an MD.
There are many. I think it's the things I've found hard anyway, wearing lots of hats. So you're part of the creative team, which is super important, and you're in production meetings as one of those people. But at the same time, you're the person who sits on that show every night. The director, the choreographer they're not necessarily in that building every night, but you're the one that's then with the cast every night. But you're sort of removed from the cast because you're creative, and you have to kind of almost be slightly aside from them. So it's hard. And then being a pianist, as well as being a conductor, as well as being a vocal coach, as well, like all of those things, like in an ideal world, those would probably all be separate jobs, really. You quite often you get, with a big budget, you can have a conductor, you can have a keys 1, keys 2, keys 3, you can have a vocal coach, you can have, but then on most shows nowadays, just financially, you are all of those things.
Yeah.
And then I think with the singing aspect of it, the vocal coaching and singing teaching, I don't know how you find that, but I think sometimes you become I don't want to say therapist because you're not, but you're also a support for people, because the voice is so intrinsically related to all of those things, all those emotions, all those life things. Yeah. So you kind of take on that as well, which I think is just wearing all those hats and being able to balance it out, that nothing suffers, that you kind of try and cover all those bases. It's hard. It's hard.
It is difficult. I get you. It is because you want to do the best that you can by everybody, but also by yourself as well. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this?
Yep. That's happened many times. But no, I've been so lucky that I think I've worked with some amazing, like when I've supervised, I've worked with some amazing musical directors sort of who have been so supportive of all that as well. And you work with some creative teams who understand all of that straight away, and they know that you're wearing 1,000 hats at the same time, and you're not just, especially if you're playing, you're not just sitting there as an MD making notes. You're the one actually having to fire click tracks, play the show. On some shows, control a remote camera. Like you just like flying a plane. You've got 1,000 things going on at once. So you work with a lot of creative teams who are really supportive of that, and they know that that's what you're going through, and it's hard. It's hard. And I won't lie, I found throughout kind of my career, less so now, getting easier now, but being a female MD has its stumbling blocks as well, shall we say.
Yeah. Sure.
There are more now, which is great. You see more. But when I first started MDing, there were no female MDs on the West End, I don't think, at the time. There was no one that was not necessarily a role model, but it did. I think potentially that's partly why it never crossed my mind to do that job, because you never saw a woman doing it. You never saw a female MD in charge. But thankfully now things are turning around and it is becoming a little more common. But hard.
Yeah, really tough. So tell us now, you're back in sunny Wales. What have you been up to since you've been back?
To be honest, when I first moved, good timing and bad timing. When we very first moved, it was the September when I came down, and I was 7 months pregnant, so which was great to start maternity leave in a new place, but then hard to then go, okay, well now somehow have to get back to some sort of life normality as well, So I'm an examiner, so I'm still doing my examining. I am still traveling a lot for work, MD gigs and accompanying. What's been lovely though is I've been able to tip the balance slightly in a positive way, in that when I first lived in London, my balance was very heavily weighted to teaching, with MDing, and then singing almost became like a little hobby that I did on the side, because more of the teaching jobs just came up, And then when we were in the Midlands for a little while, the balance sort of tipped back the other way slightly. I was running a degree course, but I started to do more singing again. So when I came back to Wales, I did say that's something that I would really like to do, is to start gigging again. So I've done a lot of that, really. I've been really lucky that I'm from the area and people still know me, which is really, really nice. It wasn't like starting completely from scratch. Like, I was very lucky. Like, both my brothers are musicians who live down here, both working in bands. We set up a new band with one. And just, been able to get back into gigging a lot and doing like silly singing in that, like, just for fun, that I love, songs that I love, and like party tunes, and not having to specifically work on a show. It's been actually really nice again to explore that and find that. But that said, I started the Torch Voices, so I do a choir with the Torch, doing a community disability choir as well, like loads of bits and bobs all hanging out, and my own teaching. And I think, but the same as everyone in this industry, I think anyone coming into it needs to be ready for the scattershot effect of, if you're going to be freelance, I'm going to have to do lots of different things.
Absolutely.
Because that's what you have to do, isn't it, to get by, and to also find what you love. I think that's what I love about my job. Whilst in lockdown, that's been really hard, being self-employed. It also means that you can do lots, and you can meet lots of people, you can get out there, and I'm very lucky. The Torch Theatre have been incredibly amazing since we moved. I'm very lucky that I have sort of connections within, because my family are from here. But at the same time, yeah, it's nice to not just have moved and just be in one job with one set of people. I'm being able to go out and about, and I'm still working, going to Ireland to do some work over there. I'm still online with my American students, so I'm still doing all of that.
Amazing.
Yeah, but mostly just sort of, I guess, more singing down here now, which I'm really enjoying. It's really nice to just,
Amazing.
get back if you want it. They've always come back to me and said, this year, do you want to do this? This year, do you want to do that? Which is great. I'm very lucky. So, yeah, it's been fab.
Amazing. God, it sounds like you've had a blast.
I have, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like anyone going into the industry, it is hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work, and I've had my times of wanting a job and not getting it, or of sitting there thinking, why am I not? Why is that person doing this, or why is that person? And I'm the worst thing you can ever do, which I know, and I tell my students all the time. But why am I not good enough? That will happen. And you can
many
tell
times.
people, you can say it to other people, and my sensible side of my brain knows this is not about being enough. This is about being right for that job. That's just being the right person at the right time. And as an audition pianist, that side of the room, being on the panel side of the room, I see it all the time. And you go, I've had written this, some of my best friends come in and auditions for shows for me. And as much as I'm like, I would love you to be on this show, like that person just maybe is just a bit more right or whatever.
Yeah.
But then when you're the other side of the table, it's hard. It's really hard. And I think that's why I would always say to people, you follow your gut and you do what feels right for you. And if it feels right, do it. And then you've got no one else to blame either. I'd hate to have got this far in my career and then been thinking, oh, bitter because someone else told me to do something, or, always been what's right for me. And then, I have had a blast. I've been so lucky. I've done some amazing jobs, but with some amazing people who are just so lovely. And like I say, it all comes back to you. Like some of the American students I work with are now working professionally, and they've been doing some meet and greets online for me and all sorts, some really lovely stuff that you think, okay, that's why we do what we do, isn't it? And like you said, teaching is brilliant. I love it. I remember sitting in the auditorium at Billy Elliot, the first cast change that was, and one of my boys was gone. It was like the first new cast member and the first of my boys was on. And I remember sitting watching the show, and I bawled, obviously, it's Billy Elliot. I really cried, and I could see the other lads who are now doing incredible things. I mean, Leighton Williams is like storming the universe at the moment. I could see Leighton up in a box, and they were like cheering Travis on, they were all like, come on, to know that he'd be brilliant. And I remember sitting thinking, I don't want to ever lose that. I don't want to, that's when I realised I don't want to just be an MD or just be a singer. I wanted to keep teaching, because seeing those boys, and I was like, oh, is what makes me, is that I get the nurturing side, I suppose, isn't it? It's like you have to care enough to nurture those kids.
Oh my gosh,
to pour what we do into them, like it's exhausting teaching a full day, especially online.
Yeah, it is. It's really tough, and there are so many days. I'm sure that you're the same, particularly at the moment. I would give my right arm at the moment to go back to the classes that we had. It's sometimes teaching online is really, really difficult, and there are a few days, I'm not going to lie, where I've woke up and thought, I don't have the strength to do this today. Like, I'm not good with technology, honestly. So that in itself is so frustrating. If the line's not good, if the weather's not good and it affects the Wi-Fi, whatever it is, or if just the kids aren't feeling it, because you've got to remember that they're just small people, and they feel rotten and fed up just as much as you do with the whole situation. But I think it's when you give a child a task or some notes and they come back the next week and they smash it, and you think, do you know what, actually I really wasn't looking, and I'm so honest with the kids. I'll say to them, look, I wasn't looking forward to this today. And particularly the teenagers, they'll laugh and be like, oh, thanks, Jen, but I'll be like, I wasn't, but what you just did then just wiped everything, from I could have the worst week possible, but that moment was just fantastic. And it gives you something that, for me personally, I just don't get when I'm on the stage singing myself. I don't get that feeling of when you're sat there watching them. You think, what more is there for me?
It's, and I think I've worked with a lot of people who almost run down the teaching, oh, you can't, so you've started teaching, and you're like, well, no, actually it's both. I think I do get a real good buzz, especially working with a cast. If I've there's some shows that I've done, Steel Pier actually will always stay with me as a number that I remember. The end of the show is so weird. If you know the show, it's a very weird story, but the band were on stage and I was playing a couple of instruments as well, and I had to always look behind me, so the piano was at the front and the stage was laid out, and I remember looking over my shoulder every night, and I won't ever forget that feeling either, every night of the audience having a reaction to something that happens in the show. Just in case you see it, I won't give it away. And then and then the beautiful music that followed it. Oh, so I think I've got like great memories of like bits of MDing and stuff the same way, but it's different when you've nurtured, and not even in a big show, you know, when you've nurtured someone's talent to. And I have so many ex-students, oh, so old, but so many ex-students now who don't do performing arts now. They've gone into other walks of life, but that, you know, you'll talk to them, and those little bits that they learn from you of confidence, or of speaking in public, or of those tiny little things that, as much as we talk about it a lot to sort of sell performing arts teaching in the UK, because obviously it's underfunded like everything else, but it's so true that those little nuggets of stuff that you get from performing arts. And my favourite is always Strong and Wrong. I think I say that till I'm blue in the face. Strong and wrong. But surely that's life. Like, if you sat inside the Houses of Parliament,
Yeah.
Everyone at the top of their career, strong and wrong is what you've got to do. You've got to lead it, and I think that's so important to learn at a young age. I don't wish that I'd change anything in my career, but I wish I'd learned that at a younger age. If I could have learned anything like that, it would be brave and strong, and don't worry. It's all tied up with the not being enough thing, isn't it? It's we doubt ourselves, but yeah, be brave, be strong, and put yourself out there. And things come, they do come at the right time as well. And like I say, I've had my tears of why haven't I had that job, or why aren't I doing that, or whatever. Everyone does. But I've always then come back and gone, no, because it wasn't right for me. And like a year or so later, you'll look back and go, oh no, that's because that wasn't the right time. That wasn't the right moment for me to do this. And now it is. And like, I find that with my singing now, actually. I think I've come to a point of more confidence in myself isn't really the right way of saying it, but like less doubt in myself is probably the confidence is the same. But I've got to a point, I think it potentially, I don't know, maybe coming back to Wales, being a more familiar surround, I don't know. But part of me now kind of goes, it's fun, let's just do it. And like, and that's been brilliant. And like I said, I've just been really lucky as well though with my, you know, my old sounds really mean, sorry if they're watching, but my clarinet teachers from school are still working, and they've been brilliant. One of them works for the arts care charity that I work for, and he's been so welcoming for me to come home, and like, you know, I've been super lucky with all that as well. But I definitely think if I could give one bit of advice, it would always be just be brave and be strong, and just don't worry. She says, worrying about lots of things, but you know what I mean.
I know, practice what you preach. I always say that to the kids. Absolutely. I'm always like, just go for it, go hard, like, come on, you've got this, nobody else knows the show, so if you do it wrong, it doesn't matter, you know. And I'm practicing all this stuff, and then just before I go on to do my thank yous, I'm always like, and the kids are going, it's fine, Jen, you're gonna be fine. And I'm like, why, what is wrong? I can't, my public speaking is
worst.
Dreadful.
Oh, it's the worst thing ever. I think I have many memories of especially singing stuff where
and that, so yeah, I think that's the big thing. I would hate anybody to be like, oh god, yeah, Jen Biddle. You know? Oh no.
We had a really, one of my best friends, dear friend, he was on the Warhols tour recently, and he did a little meet and greet for me, and I asked him and one of the other ladies from the show, like, what would be your advice to pass on to the next generation, whatever. And it was actually, her advice was from Neil Gaiman, so this is where this is coming from, right? And he said, apparently, I didn't know this, Neil Gaiman always said, apparently, you have to have 3 things to work in this industry. You can have 2 of 3 things, and if you've got 2 of these 3 things, then you'll work. Be nice, be good, and be on time. And I was like, that's so true, because if you're always late but you're really nice and you're good at your job, I'll work with you. But if you're really nice on time but you're a little bit wobbly, I'll work with you. But like, if you're 2 of those things, I don't care.
I love it.
It's so true. And I always say to students that I did some workshops with Peter Policarpo a few years ago, and his advice to students was always take something shiny from people that you meet. I always say not actually shiny, but like you do from every creative you work with, something you can take away with you. So that was always my shiny thing that I tell people that I took away from Peter Policarpo. Little things, and one day we'll look back and go, wow, yes, that was a horrible time, but look what we created, look what we did.
Sure. Definitely. Right, I've got a few random questions now.
Okay.
Favorite sweet treat?
Ooh. I can't live. I'm fueled by hot chocolate, so that's one thing. I love a good hot chocolate. White chocolate. White chocolate.
Good shout.
Yeah,
and if you
with a white chocolate.
And if you could throw a party with any theme, what theme would you have?
I would, weirdly, I would have it themed around a band. My all-time favourite band, I think the most incredible musician, Scott Bradley's Postmodern Jukebox. So that would be my theme.
Yep.
The Scott Bradley party. I'm obsessed with Scott Bradley. Incredible musician.
Yeah. Yep.
So that would be that theme, but they're not really to one style, are they? So that would be the theme. Yeah, that.
Amazing. Love it. But because they're not to one style, you've got a lot to choose from.
Yeah, but I just love it's like retro music, isn't it? But they do various styles, don't they? So it's not like decade. Because I was thinking Gatsby, but no, it wouldn't be Gatsby. It would be, yeah.
Love it. Great. And if you were stranded on a desert island, what 3 things would you have to have with you?
My ukulele times 2. So I like bunny ears. My ukulele, which I only ever bought because I got given because I was in America and I didn't have a keyboard. So ukulele can travel. Ukulele. My son, I'd have to. I can't imagine being apart from him. Well, I'd have to have the 2 of them. And some good books. I love to read, and that's something I would recommend anybody going into Pullman Outstairs. Read everything. Read about our history of theatre. Read about the history of the world. Read about just read. You can learn so much. So books.
Yeah. Amazing. And my final question for you is: after lockdown, we finally get out at some point, 2025. What will you be doing?
Oh, I have like a million meetings I need to set up for shows and gigs and charity events. That I was supposed to do a big charity event in London that got postponed, like loads of meetings, which are brilliant and exciting but work. So the non-work, going to London, stay with my best mate. He's just moved house again in London, so I'll definitely be going to stay with him. And just being outdoors. I love the outdoors, just being outdoors, like on the beach. I don't mean like just sunbathing. I'll be outdoors in the rain like this.
Yeah.
Just being outdoors. So yeah, those 3 things, lots of meetings, visiting my best friend, and then being outdoors and just just feeling like we can breathe again. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because everything's so small now. Like, just be out on a beach, on a cliff edge in the rain. Oh, I'd love it.
I know. I'm the same. Yeah, just being able to get out and see people and spend time and making memories together.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I think that I definitely take from this experience, like other memories. Yes, I was saying to my partner the other day, like, one day, our son is probably going to study this in history. That is, going to happen, isn't it? This will be on the history curriculum in like 3 years. Like, how did everyone handle this? And he's probably going to ask us. And I said to Alex, actually, weirdly, even now, and we're not even out of it yet, but now looking back on the last 13, 14 weeks, actually, I mostly have really positive memories of time we've spent with him, which we wouldn't have got. The time that we've had to spend together, we wouldn't have had. So that, I think, is what I'm most passionate about maintaining, if that makes sense, is maintaining the memories of what we've been through together, and even silly little things that we've done, daft things, or the short like history of life, like careers. Sometimes when things collide like that, you're like, what? How did that happen? Which is amazing. I love it.
That's great. Thank you so much, and I'll give you share the link with you when it goes.
Thanks, Angharad. Always great to chat to you. And hopefully we're all going to be doing what we love to do anytime soon. Keeping ourselves busy. But let's hope the arts and theatre and music can get back up again. Lots of love to you all. See you soon with my next special guest. Here's a sneaky peek. Take care, guys. Bye.